Welcome once again to the Autosportradio.com 2021 show. I'm your host, Don Kay, and we are still coming to you from the Grand King Race Shops at 8155 Crawfordsville Road. It is a working museum. As a matter of fact, I had a guest in here this weekend, and they were astounded at what is here. The vehicles and the vintage equipment that's here, it's just amazing. And all of the cars, the Indy cars that are in here are runnable. So if you get a chance, you need to come by here when things are open. If you got a small group, they'll certainly accommodate you. So keep it in mind if you want to look at something kind of interesting. Today's show is presented by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, McGilver's Pub and Eatery and Speedway, and the VP Insurance Company. A couple things. Everybody's favorite doctor visit, the dentist. Well, I can tell you one that you will like and look forward to. In fact, many people I've recommended say, you're absolutely right. It is great. It's the Indy Dental Group. Indy 500 veteran Dr. Jack Miller and his wife, Dr. Liz Lewis, have a phenomenal practice. So if you need to get an appointment with a dentist and you need to see one, call them up, make an appointment. Number is 317-846-6125. We have an outstanding computer repairman. He is A plus affordable computer doctor. Steve Freeze is the doctor, and you can take care of most anything. In fact, if it's a serious problem you can't get out, he'll come to see you. So call him, tell him your problem, see what he can do for you. The number is 317-328-0766. Paul Page's book is going to be out on May the 1st. It's called Hello, I'm Paul Page. It's Race Day in Indianapolis, and you can pre-order the book at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Get yourself a copy, have it on hand when the track opens. I'm sure Paul will have one or two markers that he can sign the book for you. So get your pre-order in at Amazon or Barnes & Noble for Paul Page's book. Hello, I'm Paul Page. It's Race Day in Indianapolis. And I am halfway through the book by SVRA Vice President of Public Relations, Mark Dill. It's called The Legend of the First Super Speedway, Battle for the Soul of American Auto Racing. It is phenomenal. It's available almost everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target. Where they sell books, you'll probably find it. If you're in England, they got an outlet over there as well. So keep it in mind. Great read. I'm into the Barney Oldfield stomping around the country, setting world records and so forth. Very interesting book. Are you looking for something for a race fan and connected with the IndyCar and Indianapolis 500? Well, let me recommend the 500shop.com. Mike Spangle has about anything you can think of that you would want. You want to give somebody a present when they come to the Speedway, a little memorabilia. He's got it. The 500shop.com. Check it out. Do yourself a favor. If you're a race car fan, a vintage fan, or even a Trans Am fan now, because Tony Perella now owns Trans Am, I highly recommend you subscribe to Speed Tour Magazine. Simply go to svra.com and subscribe. And while you're there, hit the schedule tab, see where they're running. If they're anywhere near that you can get to, I highly recommend. It's a great performance, either the IndyCar or the Trans Am or the vintage events are spectacular. So if you get a chance, go do it. That's svra.com, and the magazine is Speed Tour. The Commissioner of Insurance for the state of Indiana, as most states do, recommend every so often you check the insurance you have against others and make sure you're getting the best price. So most people have found, under my recommendation, that the VP Insurance can beat most anybody. Mike Pardee can handle anything. Tell him what you need, and he'll tell you what you get. You'll find you probably get better coverage for less money. That's VP Insurance. They're located at 5004 West 16th Street in Speedway. His number is 317-248-0070. If you ever wonder why these guys and gals can't wait to get behind the wheel of an Indy car going down the main straightaway at the Speedway at 240 miles an hour, well, get yourself a ride in the two-seater from the Indy Racing Experience. You won't go 240, but you'll go faster than you believe. Just go to IndyRacingExperience.com, find a date where they will be running, and put in an application. And in the promo box, put DK1, and you get a 50% discount. Or you can call Shonda at the office. The number is 317-243-7171. And anything you're looking for in the way of a vintage car, no matter if it's a midget, sprint car, Indy car, it doesn't matter. They can help you here at the Grand King Race Shops. give them a call. Tell them if you're looking for something, they have a couple cars here that are for sale, vintage cars, and they can help you restore one if you got one. The number here is 317-820-3595, and that's the number to call if you'd like to take a tour. My guest today is a gentleman who is currently the primary writer for Trackside Online, and it is a spectacular way to get news of what's going on in the IndyCar and the Road to Indy program. My guest, of course, is Steve Wittich. Steve, welcome to Autosport. Glad you could make it again.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, Don. It's great to be here. Always nice to look at race cars, and you too, I guess.
Well, now looking at me isn't a prize, but
like looking at me, so at least we get race cars to look at.
The season is getting underway. What have you heard about how things will open up fan-wise and access to the paddock and so forth? Have you gotten any kind of hint as to which way? I've asked, and it's kind of iffy at the moment for at least the first three races.
Yeah, that's the same thing that I've been told. I still think they're making 100% on the decision, but I think the first three races, the paddock will be closed off to fans, and I think media too. I just think they want to keep it as bubbled as they can and for as long as they can, and get as many people, vaccinated as possible. And then hopefully by Indy, I know that their goal is to have the paddock back open by Indy, but it's always dependent on the local government and stuff. But fans can still go to the first three events, which is great, and it's they say limited, but I think there's, if you want to go, you can there's still tickets available. So you can definitely go. And, both those first two events are great events for fans to just hang out. And, there's so much to see and do in both those towns and both those track areas. So I'd highly recommend going.
Yes, I just read here a week or so ago that St. Pete, they're going to allow 20,000.
Yes. Yeah. That's crowd. Right. 20,000 per day. So 60,000. So I think they normally, maybe get 100,000 for the whole 3 days. So it probably, it's a little less than normal, but not too bad.
And of course, Barber is a great place to go because there is seating, but the majority of the track you can sit on the hills around it and you can watch from there. So
it's built. It's like a bowls around all the different corners, and you can sit and see. And then the back straights, a hill, in the trees. It's beautiful, and you can sit and see the whole track from there. So yeah, there's not a whole ton of, designated seating there, but it's an awesome place to go. Take your lawn chair and pop-up tent and sit and watch, 3 days of action.
And then of course they go to Texas, which will be interesting to see. Again, a spectacular racetrack, and particularly for IndyCars. I think that, that place really puts on a good show.
Yeah, it really does. And it'll be interesting to see how the doubleheader goes there. I think that's a pretty cool place to do it at. I think it'll be good to see the fans back there too. I think there'll be, I think you get a pretty good crowd there for 2 nights. You get 2 nights of racing. That's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be hard work for the drivers and crews, but I think that's, it'll be interesting to see if, one guy's better the first night and someone else has figured it out the second night. And that's going to be an interesting event for sure. We've obviously had the double headers last year, and we had the 2 ovals, Iowa and Gateway. So they're used to the double headers on the ovals now, but Texas is a whole different animal. It's a lot quicker, and things can happen, and we'll see if crews can get things turned around.
Interesting thing about the new additions to the IndyCar Series, and of course that one is coming from Formula One. Marcus Ericsson has been here from Formula One. Now we've got Romain Grosjean is coming in, and he should draw a lot of attention. Jimmy Johnson is now in on the street and road courses. He'll draw attention. And the young gentleman, the touring supercar champion from Australia, what's his name? Scott McLaughlin, should draw some very huge number of eyes to come and watch these guys compete against regular drivers. So it's the series is building car wise.
Yeah, definitely this year. I think you'll see a few more, up to 24, 25 full-time cars at every race. So that's a definite growth over the last few years. We've kind of been stuck in that 21, 22 range for a while. So it's nice to see a little bit of growth in the car count. I think that's healthy for the series. It gives fans another group of drivers to choose from. And you've got such a great mix of drivers right now. You've got like you said, some of the veterans and the new veterans coming in, and then some of the IndyCar veterans like Dixon and Hunter Ray have been around, and you sort of get that mid-career guys like Newgarden and Rossi, and then you've got the young, exciting guys coming too. So it's a good mix right now of veterans and then guys from other disciplines, and then guys that you saw drive on the road to Indy. So it's a good mix.
The Road to Indy program, I think, is really starting to show big time. Rinus VK from the Netherlands has really shown the kid knows how to drive a race car. There isn't any question. He set some times that some of the veterans have got, holy smoke.
Yeah, no, he's very talented. A lot of like Patricio Ward, Colton Herta, those kids are phenomenally talented. I've tried to say all along, the road to Indy, the car count maybe hasn't been what it needs to be in Indy Lights, but the drivers it's produced from Joseph Newgarden to today have been very good drivers, and just as competitive as any group that we've ever had. So it's just a matter of getting the car count up in Lights, and I think they've started to do that this year. I think it'll be, I think you'll start the season with 12 or 13 full-time cars, and most of those are committed for the full season, so that's a good thing. We've been getting down to the 8 and 9, and I think building up to 12, and then I know there's a couple new teams that are looking at coming in next year, so that should grow that car count as well.
The thing about it, there may be only 13 or 14 cars in Indy Lights. The USF 2000 and the Pro 2000 have got a pretty good car count, but in the Indy Lights, all the cars there are competitive. So you don't have the leader come by and you wait 5 seconds for the guy in second, because they're all in a group. It's a very competitive series.
Yeah, it really is. And this year, I think you're really going to see, you've got, you'll have 3 drivers on scholarships. You got Stingray Robb, who won Indy Pro 2000 last year. You've got Kyle Kirkwood, who won Indy Pro 2000 in 2019. And then you've got Linus Lundqvist, who won the Formula Regional Americas, who's a very, very talented driver. And it'll be interesting to see how that champion compares to the Indy Pro 2000 champions. But those are 3 guys that are extremely talented, not to mention the guys coming back, Robert McGinnis, Daniel Frost, Devlin DeFrancesco, who won last year, David Malukas, who's been a winner at every level. So it's going to be a fun season of Indy Lights action. I think it's one of those years where, in the last few years, you've had certain guys dominate, like Askew or Award, but I think this is one of those seasons where it's going to be, you're going to have to finish races and you're going to have to finish in the top 5, that an 8th place finish really will hurt you. And I think it'll be a little bit more about consistency this year than winning races.
Something's disturbing me, and I've been accused of being disturbed before, but one of the greatest races, in my opinion, and a lot of fans' opinion in the world, has been the Freedom 100, and it's not running. Why? What was it? I never got an answer as to why.
No, I haven't got a solid answer. I have my ideas, and I'll tell you my ideas because, I honestly, I think Mr. Penske wants one oval race on the Speedway, and that's the Indianapolis 500, and that's all he's going to have this year. So I honestly think that's kind of the, it's a special track. We'll use the road course for anything and everybody, but that oval is the Indy 500, and that's it. So I think that's, you're going to hear all kinds of reasons, costs and safety. And I honestly don't, I'm sure those are a factor, but I think it comes down to the fact that one race and one race only on that 2.5 mile oval.
Well, I agree with you. That's the thought that I've gotten, and I've kind of had hints at that. But when you take one of the best races in the world, I mean, was it 4 years ago? Dempsey won the thing. He was 4th going into turn 4, and he won the race by an inch.
Yeah, no, it's been such a great race. And I wish they could find somewhere on the schedule to replace it with. It's not easy to get. The oval races are not easy, obviously, right now. We've only got 3 different tracks on IndyCar. So what are you going to do with Lights? You can't go run an oval show by yourself. That's not going to work. Right. I guess you could maybe try and hook on with NASCAR, but I'm not sure that works either. Maybe it does. I don't know. You'd have to see, but yeah, I'd like to see them back on a little bit more high speed ovals. It's good training ground for these guys. You get guys like Newgarden, who won the Freedom 100. You said like Dempsey, Askew, that it just prepares you for 200 miles an hour.
Yep. You're not kidding. this past week, the Indy cars tested at the Speedway, but it wasn't a tire test. It wasn't a car test. It was a test looking at the push to pass and ways to regulate it, I guess.
Yeah,
How did that work out?
yeah, it's a hard test to explain, right? Because when we go to the 2.4 liter twin turbo V6 in 2023, just the 0.2 liter displacement increase is about 100 horsepower. And then they're going to add that, they're calling it a hybrid system, but it's more like a kinetic energy recovery system where, energy will be stored into a battery from your braking, and yeah, you'll be able to use it. So that probably about another 100 horsepower. So I don't think they were necessarily testing using push to pass. Yeah, they wanted to see what it would be like on an oval or on a super speedway, but a lot of it too, I think, was to test, from what I understand, to test, you said you're not testing the tires or the cars. You kind of are, because you're giving that data then to Firestone and Dallara, who are building the next generation of tires and cars. And now they have data of, okay, what happens when you up the corner speed by, 5 miles an hour? What happens when you're 15 miles an hour going faster into the corner? What has to be done with the brakes? Because I talked to Dixon and he said, with that much more horsepower, your end of the straightaway speeds, are 7, 8, 9 miles an hour faster, which means you're braking a lot more going into the corners. Early in the stint, you might be able to get away with lifting, but later on, as the tires wear, you're going to have to brake into the corners. And we haven't had to do that at Indy. So the brake, it gives PFC something to look at. It gives everybody sort of a baseline of, what happens when we add 200 horsepower to the 700 horsepower we already have.
Well, I saw that most of the drivers were not for push to pass on super speedway.
No, they weren't. No, it did not work for what and I'm not sure they expected it to work. It was just to try something. Close-up rates were a little too high. The variation of speeds going into the corners doesn't work real well. It's not consistent. But, it was interesting, guys like even Award and Rossi especially kind of pointed out that maybe even Dixon, maybe this is something that works at a place like Gateway, where it is harder to pass, where, you can give them, a second or two on each straightaway worth of push. And it might, if you give them a limited amount, you'll get a little bit more passing. But it's still going to be all about, and a place like Gateway, it's going to be all about conserving your tires and keeping it.
In my personal opinion, I don't like the push to pass. If you're a good enough driver and somebody makes a mistake, you'll pass it.
I agree.
I like to see.
I completely agree with you on that one. Yeah, and it's interesting how they use it. Lights is the way they use it is interesting, because you have to be within a second and a half. So on your own accord, you have to be, get to within a second and a half, then you can use it. Sort of like F1, right? Where if you have to get within a second, then you can use it. Because unfortunately with the modern cars, the aero wash is a lot more than it used to be. And if you can get within a second, if you're catching someone, you're probably going to pass them. But if you can't because of the aero wash, then that's not great either. So it's hard. I'm glad I'm not the one regulating this stuff, because it's not easy to figure out what you have to do, because I think Pato said it best. He said, it's still a show, right? It's still entertainment for the fans, and you want to provide the best entertainment you can for the fans, yet, you still want to have, it's still a competition. So it's hard, right? Like, it's a hard balance to reach.
Well, that's what's made IndyCar what it's been over the years, and hopefully it's coming back again, because I think, as everyone realizes that follows the series, that if you win the IndyCar championship, which Scott Dixon has done 5 times, you've got to be one, if not the best driver in the world, certainly one of the top 2 or 3, because you run on everything: short ovals, super speedways, street courses, permanent road courses. You've got to master it all in order to win the championship. So I think overall, and a lot of the F1 guys, when they've suggested, why don't you try the Indianapolis? No. In fact, Romain Grosjean has said he and Jimmy Johnson don't want to run ovals. I got to think at some point, one of them, if not both of them, will run the 500.
Yeah, I would think so. At some point they will. Yeah, and I don't know which one it'll be. I really don't. I don't get a feeling on which one it'll be. I think you'll see Grosjean probably do Gateway to give oval racing a try. And I think then he'll make a decision on it. It's interesting when you talk to him, right? He had that horrible crash in Formula One. And, we've asked him in the past, or when we've talked to him, is this something that your family is afraid of you doing? And he's like, no, my kids want me to get back to racing. That's who they know dad as a race car driver. I'm sure his wife has hesitation. I'm sure he has hesitations, right? Like you're not human if you don't, but once you get in the car, they go away. But prior to that, yeah, you're going to think about it, right? It's definitely something you're going to think about.
Well, we had Connor Daly on last week, and he said the same thing. He told him, Grosjean, that you should try Gateway and get the feel for an oval, and then you probably will want to run them. And it was interesting to listen to him saying how he was one of the ones that was screaming and hollering. He didn't want the halo, but he said, good thing we had it. I'm still here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's, I was never a big fan of the halo or the aero screen, but I've come to appreciate it and come to the point where, okay, yeah, it's a good thing. The more race car drivers we keep around, the better. It's still right. It's still a dangerous sport, right? So it's still right. So, you don't want to take the danger away completely, because a lot of people, that's, why I probably became a race fan, was the danger, right? Like it's a big part of it. So it still needs to be there, but I think they found a good spot where simple things aren't going to hurt a driver.
Oh, and the fact that they're looking at the next 2 years, adding 200 horsepower to a car is going to speed them up dramatically.
Yes.
So you need the safety there, and they've taken care of that. So that's kind of interesting. I also found the interview with Grosjean interesting when I think it was at Barber where he looped the car. And he said, that taught me the fact that in Formula One, you've got tremendous downforce and you just turn the car. Right. In IndyCar, you got downforce, but you got to drive it. And he kind of indicated he liked that. He's got more control of the car than he did in Formula One.
Most drivers do like that. Most good race car drivers. Yeah, I think he's going to surprise some people. You look at his Formula One results and they weren't the greatest. But you go back to GP2 and F3, and when he was in the junior series where the cars were more, where it's not a spec car, but it's, it'll drive more like an Indy car. He was very successful. So I think, he wasn't with the right teams in Formula One. And from everything I've heard, he's approaching it the right way. The team loves having him. He works really hard off the track with the engineers. He's been very helpful going to the HPD simulator out in Brownsburg and translating that to the track, which is huge for a team like Dale Coyne. They haven't had, Bourdais did some of that, but Formula One without the testing it's simulator, and they've learned how to, make what works on the simulator work on the race car now. And IndyCar's starting to do a lot more of that too. You see a lot of the Chevy drivers posting about being in Charlotte. Well, they're at the General Motors simulator, right? Like, and they're working there. They take their two engineers down there with them, and what they find on the simulator now translates really well to what works in the real world.
It's amazing to me how they made those things. So if there's a bump in turn one, they've got it.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I think it's all laser scanning. No, it's truly amazing what they've done with those. And they've got to the point where the car handles very similarly. And when you make a change on you make a change to the roll bar on the computer, it does what it's supposed to do on the track. And then when you bring all that back into the real world, it feels very similar. So it gives the teams a chance to work on, at least something that they can base when they get to track. With the limited time on track, there's, you've got to be, the more prepared you are, the better.
Well, what the Road to Indy program is doing for IndyCar, I had Neil Enerson, who owns the Lucas Oil School of Driving, on, and the success that they've had with their drivers moving on, and they go on from them to sports cars, to NASCAR, and of course move up to the Road to Indy program through the F1600 and so forth. But the guys that have moved on from him are the list is amazing, and gals actually. The list is quite impressive, and I think America has got systems put in place that can help drivers to get to the top rank. And if they get to IndyCar, and I said to Neil, I said, I'd like to be with you the first time one of your graduates wins an IndyCar race. He said, holy smoke. I said, I'd love to be there because the happy hour will last all night, I'm sure.
Exactly. Yeah, it definitely would. Yeah, they put a really good program together. They get a really good group of coaches, and the car's a good learning car. It's not overly expensive to do do their series. I think it's $50,000, and you get I'd have to look, maybe 6 or 7 events this year, and it's definitely worthwhile for someone moving from karts to do their series. It's basically, I've actually done the school, which is a ton of fun. If you get a chance, definitely do it. It's not overly expensive for what you get, and it's a lot of fun. You learn a lot. You get guy like RC Enerson is one of the coaches, and Pippa Mann's a coach, and Gerardo Bonilla and Randy Buck. So guys that have been there, done that. Really good group of coaches that you're going to learn a lot from, as just even as a race fan. Like for me to go in as someone who writes about racing, in my mind, I understand what trail braking is and I understand what everything is, but until you do it, it's harder. It made me a better writer about racing to actually go do the school and learn a little bit more. I highly recommend it if you're around, and I know they're starting to fill up, but they've got some schools down at Bowling Green, Kentucky, I think, Audubon. Those are the closest. Audubon up in Illinois. Those are the closest schools that they do.
I think he told me their summer series is 18 races and 6 events.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Locations. So you run, when you go there for a weekend, you're there to race for a week.
Oh yeah, you race 3 times a weekend, and yeah, you get lots of practice time and qualifying. So they do a really good job at training drivers. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who the first one. You're right. That'll be interesting to see Neil's reaction when the first one wins an IndyCar race. We've got some guys going up into Indy Pro that have been through his program, so we're getting there slowly.
They're moving up, and
it takes a while.
He's done a great job. He's a heck of a businessman. He had a very successful business that he sold to get into this.
Yep.
It's interesting to see. What is it that attracted you to motorsports? Why are you involved almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in the writing about racing? Why? What got you into it?
Originally what got me into racing, my dad watched a lot of racing and took me to races, but then I fell in love with it. Like everybody else that's a fan, I'm still a fan. I have to look at it a little differently as a journalist now, but I'm still a fan, and it's the senses, it's the smell, it's the sound, it's the visuals, it's the combination of everything that makes it what it is, right? Like it's just, it's like other people, get excited when they go to an arena and they smell the popcorn and the hardwood and the leather ball and the sweat. Well, I like the smell of the methanol and the tires and, and then the sounds. It's a visual, auditory. It's hard to explain, right? It's probably the same thing you feel when you get to the racetrack. There's a certain feeling you have. And I still get.
I came here in 1964 after 3 years of being prodded to show up and watching it in the theater on television, falling asleep. When I got here in 63 or 64, I'm still here.
Yeah.
There's something about.
Yeah, no, once you get involved, it's hard to get out of it. Because you fall in love with it, and it's the people, right? It's people like meeting people like you, and getting to know different people and the backgrounds and the stories, and there's people like you who have such a long history in the sport. And if you go to IndyCar.com, like Mary Mendez, Kurt Cavendish just a really did nice story on Mary, and I don't think people understand someone like Mary Mendez, the backstory of why she's in racing, right? It goes back to Louis Meyer, right? Like it's ridiculous the amount of people that have been around. Like when you get in the sport, you stay in the sport.
Right. And of course, her dad was a 7-time winner of the 500 as a chief mechanic, George Bignotti. So that, of course, weighed heavily on it. So it's interesting the people that get themselves into it. Now, in my opinion, IndyCar is ovals. That's what it started out to be, and that's what made its name and everything else. And now they're only down to what, I think 3 ovals this year.
3 ovals, yeah.
You think, I know Iowa's had financial troubles, and I don't know if that's going to be a parking lot or a condo or something at some point, but Richmond was on the schedule last year. It's not this year. Do you think there's any chance that other ovals will eventually get back online? I know they're concerned about not running more than 18, 19 races. I'm not sure why that is, but you think ovals can make a comeback?
I think a little bit of a comeback. I don't think you're going to see an oval dominant schedule again, but talking to people within the series, and I think they know they need more ovals. It's just got to make financial sense, right? Like,
oh yeah,
Roger can't be the one promoting Iowa and losing money on it, and like it gets to the point where it just has to make sense. And they haven't found. I guess Gateway has, right? Like Gateway has found a way to have it and make it work and engage the local community. And I think that's what more tracks have to look at doing, is the way Gateway does business, right? They're so involved in the community and they're always out pushing, and it helps to have a good title sponsor and good partners to do that as well. But right, like you tried at Milwaukee with the festival, and you've tried so many things, and I don't know what, to make it work. It's so strange. It's odd to me because I love the oval. Like I'm the same as you, right? Like I grew up with both, right? Like I grew up watching F1. I grew up watching IndyCar. I grew up watching NASCAR. Most of my time at the track as a kid was in a quarter-mile asphalt oval in a place called Sauble Beach, Ontario, right? Watching late models, super stocks. But there's got to be a way to make it, I don't know what it is, right? Like I don't know what it is to make it work for an oval. I get so confused by it.
Well, you got to take your hat off to a Gateway or Worldwide Technology Raceway now.
Yes.
Their owner is very well known in the city, very well known, and they promote them. They make people aware of what they're doing, and they bring in top flight events, and they draw. Iowa did that initially when they ran on a Saturday night. They had the place packed. And what has happened there, I mean, I don't know. There was rumors that Roger was looking at purchasing it, but obviously that wasn't true.
Yeah, that didn't work out. You know what? I think you just made a point that I hadn't, I've considered it and I had forgot about it, but you said the owner of Gateway or Worldwide Technology Speedway. When was Iowa successful? It wasn't when NASCAR bought it. It was before. It was a private owner.
Right.
Like IMS, private owner. I think you've got that point. You kind of hit on something where it's got to be someone invested in it, in the local community, who has like you said, Curtis Francois, who owns Worldwide Technology Gateway, is a local St. Louis guy. He has the connections. When the people who originally owned Iowa were Iowa people. They were from Newton. They had the connections. You can get the local buy-in a lot better, right? Than you can, IMS, local connections, right? Like you get the buy-in when it's owned locally, but unfortunately so many ovals now are owned by one of two companies, and it's when it's not a local owner, there's not as much they don't have as an investment into making it work. As long as they, those tracks that are owned by those two companies, they can make money just by running NASCAR races. They wouldn't even be fans there, right? Like they just make it on the TV money, which is great, but that doesn't make them promote, and it doesn't make them try and get as many. I think that's why you see so many of the street courses and road courses working so well. You've got Green Savory, they want to make it work. Now you've got the new group in Nashville and again, they're connected in with the local community. I think you hit on something there with the Curtis Francois at Worldwide Technologies Speedway, is that it's local, and that's huge.
Well, I had one of the head guys from the Nashville track, and he said that they had Katie Guerrera, who works for the Titans NFL team. And I said, boy, you've got a source right there, right at your fingertips. He said, oh yeah, we know.
Yeah.
He will be hugely helpful because he knows how IndyCar works and what makes it work and so forth. So she'll be great. to have her there, and you get to see her again would be great. And that's going to be interesting running across a bridge.
Yeah, that's going to be a cool. I'm looking forward to that event a lot. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
It'll be, especially if they have a pileup on how the heck do you get the cars out? Do you get a helicopter to pick them up, or
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see. But I'm sure, I think Tony Cottonwood has helped lay that out. And
Tony.
he knows
Tony's
how to
involved.
do that.
He'll have thought of it. He thinks of everything. He's pretty sharp that way.
It's the thing about what Autosport is doing now with these Zoom. I mean, I was at McGilvery's for 25, 28 years, something like that. And for the last more than a year now, we've been doing these Zoom, and we can get people like yourself during the day. It's sometimes at night, it's hard to get them, although that we did successfully. But with this COVID thing, even now, people won't want, even if McGilvery's opens, they won't want to be in a confined area like that. So this is going to continue this way for a while. We're looking at
it's worked. I prefer in person, but this has worked way better than I thought it would, to be honest with you. You don't get the same, like for me as a journalist over a Zoom call, even over a phone call, I don't get the same information as I do in person, but we got to work with what we've got right now.
Strangely enough, we're getting a lot of people watching it because of my esteemed IT genius puts it on Facebook and on my two Facebook pages. And when I said to do Zoom, I thought they were talking about the kid with the Mazda commercial would go zoom, zoom at the end. I didn't have any idea what they're talking about. Now we've been doing it for over a year, and I'm slowly learning how to do it. So
it works well for the IndyCar. Like it works fairly well when we do conference calls, and it does it. Is it the same? No, it's not the same as talking to someone in person, but for what we've got, it's not bad, and it gets to talk to a lot more people. That's for sure.
Well, even some of the professional teams at the end, instead of having a press conference, they do Zoom conferences. The coaches in their office and the media is out in their room, and away they go. So it's something you got to do. We got to live with. We got to do it, and that's life in the big city. What are you looking forward to see new this year that you haven't seen? You've been to, I assume, a couple of the practice and tests anyway.
Yeah, I have. There's a few things that I think like we talked about before, I think there's some young drivers like Renus and Pato and Colton who are going to continue to put a lot of pressure on the guys in the veterans are, they kind of happy where they are, Dixon, Hunter Ray, those guys they're comfortable in their own skin. It's going to be just interesting to see how guys like Rossi and Newgarden and Pagenaud, react to these younger drivers pushing them more. To me, that's a big storyline is, how people react to not being number one, right? Like, a guy like Dixon, okay, fine. He's been there, done that, Hunter Ray, Power, those guys are getting closer to the end of their career. So they're, don't get me wrong. They're still super competitive people, but they have less to lose than a guy like a Rossi or a Newgarden or a Pagenaud who still has quite a bit of time left in their career and, won't want to be getting beat by the younger guys. So I think it's definitely going to be, a battle of generations this year. For me, that's what I'm excited to see. It'll be exciting to see, you got a guy like Award who's now been, this will be his second year with the team. He's never had that before. So he was awfully good at the end of last season. I can't wait to see what he's going to do this year. And you got Herta, who's just so consistent and so solid right now. And, Venus is coming up, and I expect him to be, contending for wins. So, I think you've got, where in the past you might have had 6 guys that could win races in a season. I think you've got 12 to 13 guys that could end up winning races this season. And guys like Ed Jones and Bourdais. I think I watch out for Foyt. I think they've made some investments in the right area, including a driver, and it's paid off with a good sponsor, and they've been good in testing. And I know they've done a lot of stuff outside the car engineering wise to improve. So I think I think you're going to see the field tighten even more than it's already been tight, but I think you're going to even see it tighten even more.
I think it's going to be fun, like you say. The other thing is. A very popular driver is coming back for a part of the season anyway. Elio.
Yes.
He's 500 winner, back at it again. So that I think that and he'll help Jack Harvey, who was very talented to begin with, and he can learn a lot from Elio.
No, he'll help that team a lot. And, I think having a guy like Montoya at Arrow McLaren, just even if it's for a couple races, it's going to be huge. It'll just give them another set of eyes on the car and a guy who's been there, done that. We're kind of in a crossover in racing where, you guys got guys like Elio and TK and Dixon, who when they first started out, there were guys like Dixon maybe got 60 days in a car in off-season testing. Back in the day, you talk to guys like Al Unser Jr., 100 days in the off-season in a car. Right. Well, these kids get 5 days, right? Yeah. So it takes them a while to catch up to the veterans, right? Like the veterans have had thousands and thousands and thousands of days in a race car. The young kids don't get that opportunity anymore. So it takes that time. And I think we're in that crossover period now where some of those older guys are stepping away. So you're going to have that even competition. Everyone's even now or getting close. So I think that as far as experience and chance to test and prepare. So I think that's, I think we're in a good spot.
Well, something that impresses me immensely, and one of the reasons I like talking to you from time to time, is Trackside Online has a phenomenal, you offer to race fans everything regarding IndyCar.
We focus on IndyCar and Road to Indy, and that's it. We know where our bread is buttered, and that's what we focus on.
And the thing that impresses me is that you have a reputation with the team. So if they tell you something, you write what they say. You don't dream up and embellish on it. You just say what they said, and therefore, when you ask the question, you come in the garage, they don't throw you out.
No, generally not. No, sometimes I piss some people off. That happens from time to time, but I guess that means I'm doing my job. But no, I very rarely will trade in rumors. It's just not something that I'm comfortable doing. I could probably break more stories if I wanted to, but I have a communication degree. I don't have a definite journalism degree, but I took a lot of journalism classes, but I also was in the business world for a long time. So I understand controlling the story, and I understand how important sometimes it is for a team to break a story instead of a journalist to break a story. And there's times when it's better for journalists to break a story. But I try and walk that line where, I let the teams tell the good news and I'll tell the bad news. That's kind of what I tell them. I'm like, if you've got good news, I'll hold it. But if you've got bad news, let me get it out there. It's easier for me to do it than you. That's my philosophy, and it works well. I get a lot of stuff on background, which, you can use down the road and which you can tell a story later. But yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun for me. I had a degree in communication. I took a lot of public relations and journalism class, but then I went in sales and business for a long time. But then I came back to this, and I kind of put both hats on when I do it. And, best way for me to describe the way I write is if I didn't want something written about me like that, I wouldn't do it. So that's kind of the way I look at it that way. There's some stuff that doesn't need to be said.
That's a smart way to do it, because that gets you a lot more interviews than if you step on people's toes. They don't want to talk to you. If somebody wants to do it, and I highly recommend it, I use a lot of your stuff, and I put it on Facebook on my webpage of what you write, and I credit you for it. Incidentally, I don't try to make somebody think I came up with it.
Sure, no, that's fine.
If somebody wants, and the reason I talk constantly about Trackside is I get emails from the PR people of the race teams, and so do you, but you put it out where everybody can get it, and subscribe to your service is not at all expensive. How do they subscribe? What does it cost us? How do they do it?
$22 for the season, for a year. You get a year, and it's so whatever that works out to a month, but then you can decide what you get. You can get just our news. You can get all the stuff from the Road to Indy. You can get the stuff from the teams, the tracks. We put the press releases straight out and don't rewrite those stories, because you know what? Those are stories that everyone's going to write. And what we try and do is get the stories behind the stories, and we'll add some travel fun in there and food and try and determine, give people a like they're on the road with us is kind of what we try and do.
And that's what Patrick does when
Patrick's better. I try, but I'm not. Yeah, Patrick's much better at giving the color, as we call it, than I am. But I do try. I love to eat. Obviously, you can look at me. I do enjoy eating, so I'm usually pretty good at the restaurant. recommendations. I'm good at finding the hole in the walls. That's my kind of my forte, is finding the places you wouldn't think the food would be good, but they are.
And it's usually a local place that the locals know, but
Always a
coming
local
in don't
place.
know, and that's where I like to go.
Rarely eat at chain restaurants. It's just not. I'd rather support local guys. So
I agree. That's what I like. So again, how do you subscribe?
so if you get on tracksideonline.com and you go to the subscribe section, you make up a username and password, and pay $22, and you'll start getting emails right away. And on a race weekend, it gets busy. We send a lot, but like I said, you can go in and, turn off stuff that you don't want or turn on stuff that you do want, so that you determine exactly what you get.
And $22 covers the whole thing. If you want everything, you get it.
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you what,
and then for Road to Indy stuff, you go to tsoladder.com. You can subscribe there, but that's free to read for anybody. So you don't need to subscribe. And then also, if you go onto the Road to Indy app, all our news stories go there too. So if you read it, that's a great way to do it too, because you can get all our news stories and the live timing and all the videos on the Road to Indy app.
one of the reasons you don't see you or Patrick walking around during the races, you're busy putting things together so people can see that aren't there, can see what's going on.
That's our goal. Yes. Yeah. And we like when we have two people there, then, one can sit in the media center and write, whether it's me or Patrick, then the other one will go out and try and get, stuff from around the track. And when I'm there, I try and spend at least one practice session out, watching in a corner and trying to figure out, the best places to watch. And, we do try and make it, suggestions for the fans to make their race weekend as fun as possible.
I enjoy reading it. I highly recommend it to anybody who want to keep up what's going on. Instead of sending an email to me, what's going on with XYZ team, here's how you find out. I tell them, go to Trackside Online, subscribe, and they'll tell you. But you get, if not all, most all of the PR from all of the teams.
Yep. Yeah, we do. And it's, I'm starting to send out I'm just starting to get the season preview stuff going. So that'll be fun. I love doing the season previews and figuring out who's moved, what team crew members have moved where, and what engineers have moved around. And I'll start sending out the team previews probably middle of next week is my goal. Getting close to getting some of them done. So, and I'm working on a Indy 500 update right now. I think you'll see, we've got 30 confirmed cars. I think you'll see 36, maybe 37, just depending on the way things go, which is good. I think it'll be nice to be bumping again. And I think it makes great things for us to write about, right? Like drama sells, right? So so I think we'll definitely have bumping this year. And I think it'll be interesting to see how teams do, right? You're going to have, Simona back with Peretta Autosport, and, that's a lone team, but they've got some support from Penske. So I expect them to be very competitive. It's going to be very, very interesting to see, who ends up in those last few seats. I know the Andretti seat's pretty highly contested for who's going to be in it. I think we know who is, but we'll see. And then I think you'll see Ray Hall will have another car. Coyne will have a third car. Foyt's maybe going to be a fourth car. Obviously, Top Gun. You guys are, we're talking about their RC should be in that car. Sounds like they're getting very close to announcing something. So that'll be good.
Well, the story is,
the
first one to get the story when it's released will be Autosport.
Yes.
So
good. Well,
here.
You're right there. Yeah.
I think you're right. And I'm really glad to see Simona back. She's a very good driver.
She is. She's excellent, and she's a good human being. And
super gal.
Yeah, no. So I think that's it's a good way. It's becoming a team owner is not easy, right? Like it's if you don't have deep pockets to start with, it's definitely not easy right now.
Sure.
So it's I know how hard those guys at Top Gun are working to make it, to make it work. You've got to. It's I don't think people understand how many moving parts there are, and you've got a commitment for sponsorship, but you can't do anything till that's paid. It's not. I know how hard it is. So
do
kudos to anyone who starts a team.
And as soon as I heard about Simona coming back, I did a thing with Beth and what she's done in her career alone now to start this and get from just conversations with Roger,
Didn't
ended
know.
up connecting with him and using his technology to help them jumpstart their program, and
Yep.
wanting to get a female crew, although she said it won't be all females because there isn't that many to complete
Not
it,
right now,
but there
no.
will be some in there, and that's her plan. And good to see. Well, I look forward to reading your upcoming stuff about what's going on with the series and who might be where and whose seats have changed and what engineers have moved to who. Always enjoy reading, and I thank you for your time to talk about it. And hopefully, go to tracksideonline.com and subscribe. It's really for $22. You can't to take the time to go and talk to the PR people. It costs you more than $22 a year. So there's a way to get around it. And joining Trackside would be my suggestion. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate your time as always. And somewhere during the season, we'll be knocking on your door once again.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me on, Don, and everybody enjoy the season.
We certainly look forward to it. My guest has been Steve Wittich, who is the primary writer for Trackside Online. I highly recommend it, tracksideonline.com, and subscribe. We have some people lined up in the coming days and weeks. So in fact, Simone is one of them, as a matter of fact. And Mark Miles will be on prior to the start of May. We've got some other people lined up. So hopefully we'll bring some interesting programming that you'll want to tune in and watch us. Until next time, this is Don K for Autosportradio.com saying thanks for being here. We'll see you again soon. Good night.